It was a spiritual contentedness. I was bettering myself with every day, but I wasn't doing it out of some desperation to improve myself, to expand upon my own expertise or knowledge. I was doing it simply for the joy of existing. And it was a wonderful feeling of balance. Not feeling lost, not waiting for something to happen in my life. I was knowing that this was my life. There was no anticipation, no anxiety, no expectations of something that would eventually come along and make me feel whole. Because at that time I felt like I was the sum of the parts of my life up until that point. It was comforting. And it was reassuring to know that in the future, if I ever felt lost again, if I ever felt anxious or unsure of myself, I could always refer back to that time when, for a brief moment, I felt complete. I've always held it as not necessarily the best part of my life, because it wasn't necessarily a high. It was a middle point that I'd love to just spend the rest of my life in. Balanced happiness. It's one that you can maintain. Nothing that takes hard work or pressure or constant attainment or spiritual development. It's just simply knowing yourself, knowing what you're capable of, being happy with those limitations, with those abilities, and just knowing that everything's going to be alright.
There's only one real thing about sadness. It's more a kind of a melancholia than sadness. The day when Charlie went missing. He came into our family when I was about 3 and became my sort of best friend. I used to tell him anything, although obviously he couldn't answer back. His expression was one of almost like a frown. We went everywhere together. We had adventures out in the garden. One day we had a family trip to Coventry Cathedral, and we'd all gone out as a family group. And come the afternoon, we noticed that Charlie was missing. And I mean, I was distraught. We had no idea where he was. I couldn't remember where we'd last seen him, so we recounted all our steps. And eventually, we had to. We asked lots of people, but we had to get our bus home. And that was the last time I ever saw Charlie. Think back, I think, well, hopefully he found himself a new family, and one day I sometimes think perhaps we could be reunited after all these years. People who are sad tend to make those around them quite sad as well. It's more like melancholia, where somebody has a sad feeling. They become quite sad characters, so that people react very strangely towards them. That there's an air or an aura about them, and that tends to bring everybody else down. So it would be a conversation might be quite lively, and then a sad person, or a person who is generally sad, enters the room. The conversation will slowly drop down and die to a grinding halt, because they don't have any enthusiasm. And I think that's possibly what's missing. Any kind of enthusiasm. That they're always thinking about the things that make them sad. They can see the sadness in everything. So it still makes me feel sad nowadays to think whatever happened to Charlie that day. That's sort of possibly the saddest thing that's happened to me, and I miss him to this day.
Most of the time what makes me angry is that when I don't get my way, I think that everything should revolve of how I want it. Like, anything that I want has to come true, but nothing works that way. It's like with my brother. The way he gets what he wants, he acts really nice and soft, and then if he gets a no, he turns into a monster and starts shouting and screaming and stomping off everywhere. But if he does get what he wants, he just acts nice for 5 minutes, and then when he's told to turn off, he turns back into the monster.
How do you control your anger?
Most of the time, I don't control it. I just unleash it on something like a pillow or a bedpost.
Do you get angry at school?
Yeah, most of the time.
Use that with your friends or your teachers?
Yeah, probably the head teacher.
What's she like?
Really mean, very shouty, angry as well.
What does she shout at you about?
Things like, don't track mud in even though I got squeaky clean shoes. Or, you've been shouting in class even though it's really quiet.
What would you do if nobody told you what to do then? Would you be nice and calm?
I'd be a free man, I'd be the king of the world, I'd be the happiest man ever.
And you'd never get angry?
No.
At the time, there were a range of feelings. They left me exhausted, tired, not sure of what I was feeling. But it was amazing to feel everything flood my body and then leave again. That's when we come back to the feelings of being overwhelmed. Seems like a dream now to someone else, but it did all happen. Intangible moments of fear, of trying to be in the one place, stay put, run away, avoiding how I felt, doing anything to subdue the feelings. Sleepy, heavy, anxiety, unexpected tears, unguarded moments, moments of longing to be normal, to be as before. Seems a long time ago now. Heavy, undone, fear without form, sadness with longing, a time long ago, despair tinged with needing to be elsewhere, to feel something different, to avoid the nothingness. It was as if it was happening to someone else, and I could watch it happening in slow motion. Finding the self-absorption very tiring. the need to talk about how I felt all the time.